Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
We're going to podcast, and I'm going to hit record for Libsyn, and we're going to get going. So we should be good to go. And hello, everybody. I am Betsy Hjelmgren, registered dietitian and pediatric nutrition expert, and I am here today with the Feed to Succeed podcast, and we have a very special guest with us. This is Alyssa Hjelmgren. Alyssa, can you tell everybody who you are?
I'm the daughter of Betsy Hjelmgren.
You are.
And I'm 15 years old and a student at Glenbrook South High School, and I'm a figure skater.
You are a figure skater. So one of the things that we've been talking about doing for our podcast season is talking about sports nutrition. And I thought it would be really fun to talk to a student athlete because we do kids and teens, and you, in fact, are an athlete. So we're going to talk about all kind of things, and it's going to be casual, super cash. Just hear what you have to say and what your insights and experiences have been. So first of all, just to get started, let's tell people a little bit about your sport.
So I do synchronized skating, and I've been doing it for 9 years.
Okay.
And it's really fun. We practice probably 15 hours a week-ish.
What is synchronized skating?
You have a team of 12 to 16 skaters on the ice at once, and they move around in formations and skate to programs.
So I am a synchronized skating fan, and I get to travel with the team and see them compete and see other teams, because you guys, there's not a lot of synchronized skating teams all in one location, so you guys travel a lot.
Yeah.
So tell everybody about what's coming up this weekend.
This weekend I have a competition in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I'm going to be there for 3 days.
For 3 days.
Yeah.
And what do you think about the competition field at your skating level this weekend? Is it going to be tough?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of really strong teams there, so it's going to be tough competition.
So, in fact, this fall I started a nutrition seminar with your team and with a couple of the other teams, because we have different levels of skating within one team program, right? And my goal was to kind of help you guys to figure out how to improve your strength and your stamina and your overall health to make you better athletes. Can you share with our listeners, what are a couple things that stick out to you in terms of what you learned from our nutrition seminars?
We talked a lot about how hydration can really make an impact on your performance. Was it a 30% decrease when you're not hydrated in how you perform at practice?
Yeah.
And how important eating a right plate for an athlete, there's a separate athlete's plate from the home my plate idea, and how important that is to doing well.
Yeah. So those are two really great topics, so let's talk about them a little bit more. So in terms of hydration, share with us your knowledge, but also, well, first start with sharing what you know about hydration in sports. I know you just said 30%, you can have up to a 30% performance decrease if you're not properly hydrated. What does that mean, do you think, to be properly hydrated?
Well, on a day when you're not doing much exercise, you should drink half your body weight in ounces of water. So, and then when you're doing more exercise and physical activity, you should probably have more than that.
Why?
Because when you exercise, you're sweating and you're using up the water in your body.
Right, for sure. So we did some team challenges. How do you feel like you do personally with hydration?
Not very well, usually.
Okay.
I do better on days when I have practice, but usually at school I'm not drinking a lot of water.
So, to be honest with you, since I work with kids and teens all the time, that's a pretty common concern. And one of the things that I know as a dietitian is that although most human senses get dull and weak as we get older, thirst actually gets better. So the younger you are, the less likely you are to have a good sense of thirstiness and when you need to drink. So a lot of times people need to be specifically advised on how much and how often, because it might not just feel like natural, like I need to drink. You actually have to kind of override your natural sense of thirst. What are some of the things that you find get in the way of you doing that?
Well, sometimes I'm just not even thinking about it. Like, I'll be at school, like, going to my classes, and it won't even cross my mind. And sometimes it's inconvenient to, like, go fill up my water, or sometimes I just don't want to have to pee a lot during the day. Because it's kind of a hassle to, like, have to get up, go to the bathroom, miss some of the notes, stuff like that.
So, especially during the school day, it's difficult?
Yeah.
How do you manage it when, let's say you were going to have a really good hydration day and pay attention to it and manage it with your classes and everything? What would you advise, or what do you do?
I usually, so like when I have practice, I try to drink, I have a 24-ounce water bottle that I carry with me. I try to drink at least one of those throughout the day, sometimes one before lunch, one after lunch, depending.
Okay.
Just how I'm feeling.
Can you tell a difference when you get to skating? Can you tell a difference if you've drank enough water or not? Is drank a word?
Drank, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
You
like,
can?
if I haven't had any water all day, I'll feel like really tired just after doing the warm-up. And then by the time we actually get to like doing our program, I feel like I'm gonna pass out sometimes, or just really, really tired and thirsty super fast. And if I've had enough water, usually like I'm not even tired after like warming up and like doing a couple sections of our program, and I don't get thirsty as easily.
So you're noticing it most in how quickly you fatigue.
Yeah.
Does it change the sweating, or do you sweat the same?
I don't really notice because it's cold in the ice rink.
Okay.
So it's hard to break a sweat.
So the biggest thing you feel is it delays fatigue. When you're thinking about delaying fatigue during a practice or even during a competition, what kind of benefits do you think there are in fatiguing more slowly?
Well, you can go faster for longer. So like in our program, the whole thing, you have to be like pushing really fast and like showing a lot of energy and expression. And if I get tired, that becomes so much harder. And I could tell that like my skills just aren't to my full ability.
Okay. Like specific skating skills beyond just your energy level?
I think just the overall quality of my skating skills kind of declines as I get tired. Like my extensions aren't as high, and like I'm not pushing quite as hard.
Got it. So one of the other things that we talked about with the hydration week that we did for your team was not only the importance of water, but also the importance of electrolytes. Because a lot of people don't know how to properly use electrolytes during practices or during performances. What did you learn during that?
You need to replace your electrolytes after an hour and a half. An hour of sweating.
So tell me, like, as another member of a large team, what do you see your teammates doing? Are people following these recommendations?
Well, one of the things that's popular for them to use is the Gatorade chews, you know, like the strip of gummies. And a lot of them just like down a whole sleeve of them before practice.
Which isn't really the desired use, the intended purpose of those.
Yeah.
Right? So we had talked about when an athlete has exercised for an hour or less, they have electrolytes in their body from foods they've eaten, and they just need water, right?
Yeah.
But after that initial hour is up, you've used up a lot of the electrolytes in the sweat you've lost, and that after that hour is up, it's time to replace electrolytes, right?
Yeah.
So if you're done practicing, that's easy, you just eat. But if you're going to keep practicing, then we need to start thinking about some electrolyte options, which food is one, but sometimes you can't really be eating food in the middle of a practice. So then we start talking about, like you mentioned, the Gatorade chews are one thing. Those are electrolytes, but they're not really intended to use before practice.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things that skaters use or other athletes use that you know of?
There's Gatorade, there's the Noon electrolyte tablets that you can drop in your water, there's the Jelly Belly electrolyte versions, there's just a bunch of stuff.
Okay. And have you yourself experimented with any of these?
Sometimes. I've tried the Noon tablets and they're pretty good, but I don't always like flavored stuff in my water while I'm practicing.
When you have tried those, do you notice a difference?
Sometimes, yeah.
I know as a runner, when I have run more than an hour, which I do on the weekends, I'll go for a long run. If I run more than an hour, by the time I get to 60 or 70 minutes, I'm really starting to fatigue, but I can feel a big difference if I use an energy gel, or recently I've been eating some dried fruit like raisins or dates, which also contain a little sugar and some electrolytes, and that'll really, I can really feel the difference between that and plain water after an hour when I'm tiring. It'll give me a big boost.
I like the goo things.
The goo gel?
Yeah. I had one of those on Saturday before practice, and I could tell the difference the beginning a lot.
And sometimes some of these products have caffeine in them, and people think, well, maybe caffeine's not that healthy for kids, and certainly we know that excessive caffeine can affect height growth. But usually by high school, girls are kind of done growing.
Yeah.
And it has the benefit of opening up airways, which helps us get more oxygenation to brain and muscle, which is actually beneficial, right?
Yeah.
So that's cool. So what would your advice be to other teen athletes in terms of hydration?
Hydration. Just make sure you're drinking enough water before the practice too, because oftentimes you don't really realize how thirsty you're getting until you're already like practicing, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't had anything all day to drink, and you can tell. So if you're keeping it up throughout the day, you're going to need less water breaks.
I think that's a good point too, because I think people think, well, I'm just going to drink while I'm exercising. I think that's a really valid point, that hydration, you can't just hydrate while you're exercising. You have to be hydrated when you begin exercise. So you have to pre-hydrate, then you have to replace, and then you have to post-hydrate. So, okay, I think that's good. I think that'll be helpful. The other thing let's talk about, since you brought it up, and we can talk about other things another time, but you brought up this whole idea of the athlete's plate.
Yeah.
I think probably a lot of people don't know about that and don't know what it is. Did you know about what it was before this year?
No.
So what do you now know about it?
I don't remember all of it. I know there's a different plate for competition days and for practice days, and they involve more like whole grains and proteins and stuff, I think.
So we did a challenge with the team, and we looked at these athletes' plates, and they're available if you want to see them. They're available actually on the Team USA website under the nutrition tab. And so what they have are 3 different examples of what a plate should look like for 3 different days, like a very light exercise day, a moderate day, and then a hard competition day. So you can kind of get an idea the optimum foods you should be eating on different days based on practicing and things like that, with the overall intent to eat balanced, to get enough fruits and vegetables to reduce inflammation and prevent illness, to get enough protein for muscle repair and all that. So you mentioned, and you're right, on the middle plate, the moderate day, moderate training day, they focus more on whole grains, right? Do you think teenagers know what whole grains are?
Maybe. We have health class.
So it's part of this nutrition program we did with your team. We had the girls and boys, there's a couple boys, post pictures of what they were eating, and for the My Plate, what I noticed was that some of them, not all of them, but some of them would post on their moderate practice day, they were supposed to do like a third of the plate whole grain, a quarter of the plate protein, and then the remainder vegetables. And some of them were posting on their chicken tenders, and then when I would challenge them and say, I'm not sure that's a whole grain, they would say, well, it's breaded. So to me that was an indication that maybe they didn't all have the knowledge that they needed about what constitutes a whole grain. What do you think?
I think some of them have more knowledge than others. It just depends who you ask.
Where do you get information about nutrition, other than living in a home with a dietitian all the time, but where do you hear things about nutrition and advice and things like that?
I really don't, outside of what I hear from you that much.
Your friends don't talk about food or eating?
I mean, sometimes it just doesn't come up that much.
What about, you said that they've talked about it at school and health?
Yeah, we had a nutrition unit in health class, and we talked about like what the average person would need, but we didn't really cover like if you're like an athlete. Or...
Mm-hmm. What did you learn anything in that?
No.
Oh, all right. So nothing to add to the conversation from that. Well, let's go back to our talking about whole grain. So despite, okay, so there's one thing to know what a whole grain is.
Yeah.
Which means it's not processed to the point where all that's left is the white part of the grain and the seed covering and the fiber's been removed. So that is definitely, if it's a white bread, white flour in a cracker, then it's no longer a whole grain, a white bagel. But the whole grains include not only, when they grind the flour, it's including the whole seed, the outside of the seed, the inside of the seed. So that's why it's whole, it's a whole grain. So that's one thing. And as you mentioned, that's on the moderate training day. Do you remember on the competition day recommendations?
It was more like refined grains and stuff,
Yeah.
and like simple carbohydrates.
Which surprised me because, I mean, I do get into sports nutrition, but I also, my main focus is pediatrics. So in terms of sports, I hadn't really paid attention as much to competition days, training days being them allowing more refined carbs, complex carbs. Like on those days, on the actual competition event day itself, the recommendation was white bagels and white pasta and things like that. Do you remember why?
Your body turns it into energy faster.
That was part of it. There was another reason.
It's easy to digest.
Yeah, it's easier to digest. It's less likely to cause stomach distress and excessive gas and needing to run to the bathroom. So on that topic, here we go.
Oh no.
So one of the things that I hear you say frequently and that I actually hear from a lot of my patients and clients is this thing about like not feeling hungry and not wanting to eat and stomach being upset or not feeling right. Can you tell people about that? What is that?
Yeah, it happens a lot, like before I go to a practice, or like especially on days when I compete. Like last year at Nationals, the day we competed, I was so nervous. All I ate that day was like a bag of chips and a Nutri-Grain bar, and we competed at 6:30 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
So I just get so nauseous when I get nervous, or like even before practice.
Right, in the mornings. Sometimes you skate in the mornings.
Yeah.
It's been a struggle between you and I, me telling you need to eat and you saying I don't feel good.
Yeah.
And even with non-athletes, I get that a lot with teenagers. They just wake up, they're not hungry, they want to skip breakfast and just get on with the day.
Yeah.
And I know that I've kind of pushed you in this area a little bit. Have you discovered any tips you could share with other teenage athletes, that things that do work and things that don't work?
Yeah, so I always try to eat something before practice, because even just eating something makes a big difference. Even if you're just grabbing a banana or like a Nature Valley granola bar or something really easy on the stomach, that's only like a couple calories, that will make a big difference, because I can definitely tell when I've eaten something and when I haven't.
In terms of what?
In terms of like how I'm feeling, because usually after I eat, the nausea usually goes away after like 30-40 minutes on the ice. But if I don't, it just gets worse and I feel completely like exhausted.
So I think that's a really good tip for people to hear, because they're afraid to eat, they don't feel good. But you've found that if you do make yourself eat something, maybe 200 calories or less, that you're more likely for the nausea to go away if you've done that than if you didn't eat anything.
Yeah. And I'm not like lactose intolerant or anything, but I usually try to avoid having dairy in the mornings too before skating, just because like it's harder to digest for me, I think, sometimes, and it just makes me feel bad.
In what way?
Like, I don't know, it feels like it sits in my stomach for longer than if I grabbed like a sleeve of graham crackers or something.
That's probably
like
true.
that.
It's more protein, it's more fat, it's probably going to take longer to digest. That's probably true.
Yeah, so I prefer to grab, like I really like the Nature Valley granola bars, or like the Belvita breakfast things, or a sleeve of graham crackers, or just something small and easy like that.
Does your dietitian approve of those things?
I don't know. She doesn't comment.
What does she recommend you do after your practice?
Usually eat some yogurt and have protein within 30 minutes of finishing.
Yeah, and that's one of the ways that I've managed to kind of get that dairy in you, is bring you something after practice before you go to school. Cheese, yogurt, sometimes it's a drink
Yeah.
Carnation breakfast essential drink, maybe spiked with a little coffee, who knows. Okay, so that's really good. What about on competition days though? So you mentioned this day on nationals, you had eaten what all day? Cheez-Its?
No, I ate one bag of baked Cheetos and
Cheetos.
one Nutri-Grain bar.
For the whole day. And
Yeah.
you knew, I mean, people know we have knowledge of what's good and what's not good for our bodies. You knew that wasn't ideal.
Yeah, but I was about to throw up like the whole day. I was so nervous.
So if that happens again this year, would you do the same thing?
Probably.
You would?
I mean, I don't know. I haven't been getting as nauseous at competitions this year, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
I might, because the one day it didn't really affect me that much. I don't know if it was the adrenaline or what, but I couldn't even tell. But then afterwards, I was starving, and
Right.
I ate like a whole pizza.
On the previous competition?
At
Like this one?
nationals.
Oh, at nationals. Okay.
But the previous competition, I haven't felt as nauseous.
At Kalamazoo.
Yeah.
So we're just one competition into the season this year. We've got one behind us and one coming up this weekend. So we have another season upon us.
Yep.
So talking about Kalamazoo, which was almost 2 weeks ago, and food and eating and fueling, how did that go?
It went pretty well.
Tell us more.
Well, I ate a lot, and you plan out most of our meals while we're away, so there was always like a lot of good options. Do you want me to like say what I ate?
Well, what do you think worked particularly well for you, and maybe what's something that didn't?
We had Italian food one night, and that worked pretty well. Like, there were some vegetables, and then there was like some white pasta because we had a practice after that, and there was some chicken, so like options for protein and carbs and vegetables. And
That set well.
yeah.
Everybody liked it.
Yeah, and we had, did we have Panera? Yeah.
For lunch that
And
day.
we didn't have any of the heavy soups, but on competition day we had chicken noodle soup and bread and chicken Caesar salad, so that set pretty well too.
It did?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good to know. We got a lot more coming up.
Yeah.
What do you have other experiences in terms of being an athlete and nutrition and being a teenager? Things that you think other teen athletes don't know that maybe they should know? I put you on the spot.
Well, I don't know.
What do you think is the most important aspect of eating and fueling for your sport? What's the one thing that you really don't think that you could give up?
Well, water's important. And also just like eating healthy, because if you're eating like McDonald's all the time, like sometimes at school, like one day I got French fries and a fried chicken sandwich, and then I had to go to a long practice later, and I felt so horrible the whole time. So even like on days when you have long practices, make sure you're eating healthy and not having a lot of like really greasy foods.
I'm gonna take a big risk right now. Can we talk for a minute about teen athletes and body image and weight? Is there pressure on your team? Do you feel like the girls are concerned about their bodies and their weight?
I mean, people bring it up sometimes, but I think that it's not as big of an issue for people. But I think just from among figure skaters in general, like there is a certain body image that everyone wants to have.
Tell us what it is.
Like the like super skinny, super like muscular, like if you picture a freestyle skater you've seen on TV, that's kind of what everyone wants to
Like
look
thin
like.
and lean.
Yeah.
Do you, I know it's hard to answer this because I'm your mom, but do you hear girls talking or worrying or dieting or concerned about these things?
Not really on my team. I've heard like girls who don't do synchro complain about it more than girls who do.
You mean ice skaters who aren't skating synchro, or just girls in general at school?
Both.
Both.
Yeah.
So in your school, you're seeing girls who are kind of preoccupied with that?
Yeah.
Okay. And they're not necessarily athletes, it's just kind of the general culture.
Yeah.
I think that's typical for girls at that age. Do you ever hear boys or guys talking about that?
No, I've never heard her guys talking about
You
that.
haven't?
Mm-mm.
Because if you look at statistics, it is increasing with boys and males in general to be more concerned also about their weight and their image than they used to be.
Yeah, I'm sure they talk about it. I've just never heard it.
They're not talking about it to you.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think about, I mean, I know it's a touchy subject for anybody to talk about their weight, but how do you feel about your weight and your body and your ability to skate and do what you want to do?
Pretty good. Sometimes I've had some like issues with like how I look, but I think overall I'm pretty happy with my body image and how I look. And sometimes I wish I was shorter, so I stuck out less in our team because I'm the tallest one.
Mm-hmm.
But and sometimes it's hard being tall too, to like control all my body because I need like more core strength than other girls would.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, pretty good.
I totally threw her under the bus talking about that. That's a sensitive subject, but it is very, very common. I mean, people worry about how they look and what their image is and how other people perceive them, and all of that I think is really important and hard to talk about. And I know that when you were younger, I kind of avoided talking about it because I was nervous about making an issue. I didn't want to talk about body or weight. And then recently, over the past few months, we've actually had a couple really just straightforward conversations about it.
Yeah.
As a mother of a teenager, I think that's probably a better way to handle it. But I'm learning as we go because you're my first teenager. So I'm having to figure it out. But I think like the last time we really got into a talk about it, I felt like, I don't know, I felt like it was okay to talk about it. It wasn't like a bad thing. It was good to address it and just be out there with it. Do you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, I mean, we've been talking for 27 minutes. It's about just the right length. Any final things you want to share or thoughts? You can say no.
Well, I don't know. I have to think.
She may be out of stuff to tell us.
Yeah, I think that's everything.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you being honest and open and sharing some information. I know people really appreciate hearing it firsthand from somebody your age instead of from the mom always saying this, and that. So that was good. Hopefully maybe some of your friends will get something out of it. And I'd love to have you come on and talk some more about some of the other things that we didn't talk about today with sports nutrition over the next few weeks, like maybe refueling, fruits and vegetables, and some of those other important topics, if you're up for it. She may not even be up for it. I may just make her do it. But I do think that people will appreciate that, and we appreciate our listeners. If you have comments or questions, please send them to us. You can make comments on the Facebook Feed to Succeed Facebook page, or you can email us at betsy@feedtosucceed.com. And please, if you've enjoyed this, share it. If you have found this to be helpful, please like it and give us some ratings, because that's how other people find us. And that's about it. I think we're done.
Okay.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Thanks.